Often, students come and ask me how they can analyze the data obtained from their final year projects, or FYP. They also wonder what is the best way to present this analyzed data so that they can give a big impact to the examiners, readers, and to other researchers. And what are the need-to-know skills to present this data, and how they can plan and manage their data in a systematic manner. These are some of common burning questions that FYP students have in their minds. From my years of experience as a FYP coordinator, I can see that students usually have no idea of what kind of results expected from their FYPs or what kind of data they will be handling in their projects. And because of that, students are puzzled on how to analyze this data. Hello, I'm Jannah Ibrahim. Welcome to my Excel at Your FYP video series, which is a series of video I curated purposely to help students managing their final year project. And in this video, I'm going to share some tips on how students can analyze data and then present this data as the results of their research work. Have you ever wondered what is the meaning of result? The term result means a thing that is caused by or produced by something like a process or event or activity or a consequence following an activity. In simple words, result is an outcome of something. In any scientific project like the FYP, a result can be an item of information obtained by experiments or other scientific methods. A result can also be a quantity or formula obtained by calculations. Now, what is the definition of data? Data are facts and statistics collected together for reference or analysis. Data can be in various forms. These include facts, numbers, figures, statistics, features, and etc. In FYP, data are units of information, often in the form of numeric, that are collected through observation or experiments. Therefore, it is really important for you to identify the type of expected data to be obtained from your research activity in your FYP work. In general, there are two types of data. First, the qualitative data, and second, the quantitative data. The quantitative data involves data that are measured using scientific equipment or data obtained from a numerical analysis method. Some examples of quantitative data are current and voltage measured from a multimeter, gas flow rate obtained from a flow sensor, or frequency obtained from an oscilloscope. Meanwhile, qualitative data involves data that cannot be measured physically but can be observed from research method. Some example of qualitative data is student marital status, like married or single or divorced, mood of student, like happy, sad, and etc. Now, let's discuss about the type of data source. There are two types of data source, namely primary data and secondary data. The primary data is data collected by researcher from its original source. For example, the water flow rate data collected from Sungai Pusu River using flow sensor is a primary data. In this experiment, the researcher need to set up the data acquisition system at the river and collect the data for several days. Collecting data at the primary source or hands-on data enable researcher to get the nearest possible data of the actual condition. Primary data reflects the individual point of view of the researcher or observer who conducted the experiment. Some examples of primary source are experiments, observation, questionnaires, and interviews. On the other hand, secondary data is data that already been produced by others and is used by researcher who is not present at the scene or does not conduct the experiments. Hence, the secondary data are based on documented information that usually has been analyzed and interpreted. Some examples of secondary sources are published articles or journals, books, newspapers and magazines, and internet statistics. Then you will ask, why is data so important in my FYP? This is because simply data is the core of your FYP. Without data, there will be no result or outcome of your work to be reported. And as a consequence, when there are no results, it can be concluded that the project has not achieved its objective. You might say, now I already got my data, so what's next? Okay, the next step is to analyze your data. The data analysis technique depends on the type of data you obtain from your FYP work. For quantitative data analysis, we use mathematical approach to investigate and evaluate the properties of data. And the best way to conduct quantitative analysis is by using statistics. There are two types of statistical analysis. First, the parametric test, and second, the non-parametric test. What is the difference between parametric and non-parametric tests? The key difference is that the parametric test relies on statistical distribution of data, whereas non-parametric do not depend on any distribution. In a parametric test, we assumed the parameters and the distribution of the population or sample is known. The most common method in parametric statistics is the inferential analysis, where we can do hypothesis test, prediction or estimation test. Interestingly, these inferential methods can produce similar summary values as descriptive statistics, such as the mean and standard deviation. In other words, when you have enough data from your FYP work, you can use inferential tests to check the project hypothesis whether it is correct or not. Non-parametric statistics sometimes uses data that is ordinal, meaning it does not rely on numbers but rather on a ranking or order of sorts. For example, a survey conveying consumers' preference ranging from like to dislike would be considered ordinal data. In analyzing your data, you can discuss with your supervisor the best statistical methods to be used or not to be used in your project. It is really important to know that one of the primary reasons of conducting scientific investigation is to discover the relationships between variables or parameters so that researchers can explain, predict, and control them. For example, your project is to investigate a machine learning technique to classify stress level from human physiological signals such as electrocardiogram or ECG. Let's say the hypothesis of the project is that the ECG signal in human body can be used to determine stress level using machine learning method. And to test the hypothesis, you need to identify the parameters and variables in ECG signal that can be used in machine learning. And you also need to know what kind of machine learning methods to be used in this project. Having a clear vision of the type of data expected can lead you to the best method or approach to conduct your project, and this will ease the analysis stage once you obtain the data. In FYP, you can focus on 2 or 3 parameters that directly related to the project objective. In qualitative data analysis, it showcases the nature of elements and is represented as new concept and theory. Some tools that can be used for qualitative analysis are categorization and theme-based analysis. Secondly, quantitative analysis on text-based data using statistical packages such as SPSS, SAS, and etc. In general, due to the nature of engineering research where it is based on design and experimental approach, hence the data involved are usually from the quantitative data type. Therefore, the statistical approach can be used to analyze FYP data. Let's discuss how to present your data in an impactful way. Let me give you a scenario. How do you feel if you are handed a file full of data by someone, let's say by your supervisor, and you have no idea what the data means or what kind of data you are trying to find? Now, let's think, how does your audience will feel if your FYP result is presented by a huge collection of data without being analyzed, interpreted, or summarized? Do you think your audience can find important facts when you presented your data in such a way? Remember, data is only useful when your audience can understand it. And one of the best ways to decipher the jumbles of figures and statistics is to turn it into a visual representation. By understanding and choosing the best medium for your data, you can then proceed to design the most effective and efficient way to represent your data. Note that behind every statistic is a story, and a good data visualization or presentation will help you tell that story effectively. Don't let your time and effort get wasted because you carry out any analysis that is not relevant to the objectives of your research. After you finish analyzing your data, you will need to present the outcomes or the results of your research. This is where the results and discussion chapter of your FYP report comes into the picture. Here are the 4 useful tips for writing an impactful result and discussion chapter. First, you must use proper text and visual aids to represent your data. And this includes choosing the most suitable figures and table that can tell your story the best. As a general rule, tables and figures should complement the text or description written in the paragraphs. Figures and tables should not merely duplicate information that has already been presented in text form, but rather they give extra valuable information that you wanted to tell your audience about. And using figures and tables, you can enrich audience understanding with useful information. Therefore, they should not be completely independent from the text. Tables are usually used to show lists of parameters under study. Sometimes, for large amount of data, graphs are the best way to show relationships between parameters. It is also a good strategy to include a diagram that shows an overall research methods or framework in order to help audience to understand your FYP work. The second tip is, try to give your best interpretation of the results. Presenting data is not only by simply reporting it, but you must also interpret the data, which means you need to describe what the data means in relation to your research question or problem statement. And you also have to give explanation on how does the data relate to your FYP research objectives. Let's discuss the difference between reporting data and interpreting data. Let's consider some data taken from MRT schedule between Taman Pertama and Coherence Station. For reporting the data of MRT schedule, we can write, between 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., the majority of the respondents, 85%, said that they had to wait for more than 5 minutes before being able to board on an MRT coach from Taman Pertama to Coherence Station. When interpreting the MRT scheduled data, we can write, the findings indicate that the frequency of MRT service from Taman Pertama to Coherence is inadequate during morning peak hours. I hope you can see the difference between reporting and interpreting sentences, and you can try to write your own interpretation of your FYP work. The third tips for writing an impactful results chapter is to use proper language of reporting. Let's spot the difference between these two sentences. From the survey, 75% of the respondents feel happy. The survey shows that 75% of the respondents feel happy. Note that the two sentences do not have the same meaning. The first sentence means that because of the interview, It makes 75% respondents feel happy when actually it was not from the survey or interview that the respondents feel that way, but rather we wanted to say that 75% respondents from the survey feel happy about something. Here we can see a proper usage of reporting language is crucial to deliver the correct information to our audience. Last but not least, in order to write a good impactful chapter, we must refer to the figures and table correctly. When referring to figures and tables in paragraph, this will draw the audience or reader's attention to the figures or table. It is also a good practice to locate the figure or table after the text that mention it. That's end our discussion on results, data type, data analysis, and 4 tips on how to write an impactful results chapter. By applying tips mentioned in this video, I hope you can plan your data analysis and know how to present your results that can capture the heart of your audience. Thank you.